Hello there, and welcome to my guide of how to play Chrome Conflict for the first time. If you're unfamiliar with Steel Sentinels, then this is the guide for you. Now once you start the game up, which you can download in the Chrome Conflict Discord, which will be linked in the description below, you'll probably want to go to Options and turn down the music and sound effects volume by clicking on the bars in the circle here. We probably will be covering this menu here at the very end, but for now I'm going to go into the basics of how to build a bot and how to play the game. So firstly, you'll want to go into configuration. Here on the left side you will have all of the available chassis that you can choose from. All of the chassis have different stats and different functions and excel in different things and have their own set of weaknesses. You don't need to know all of them right now, but just know that as you play the game, you'll see other people use chassis and see where their strengths and weaknesses lie. So I'm going to build a chassis from scratch. The Aquila chassis is a very fast, very lightweight, and a pretty diverse low-end chassis, so it'll be perfect for this tutorial. So after you choose your chassis, you get to choose the head you're going to use on the chassis. The heads also have different stats, but the most notable thing about the heads is that they have module slots, or they add module slots that the Sentinel can use in addition to the module slots they come with. This little icon here represents the module slots, and we'll get into those. But I'm going to choose the Scout head because it is a very good head for flying Sentinels, and I want to show both jumping and flying in this tutorial. So I will choose the Scout head. As you can see, this little icon here, it looks sort of like a thrust. That indicates that the head has a positive thrust bonus. As you can see in this little pop-up information, it has thrust at 30, as opposed to jump, which is -10. So it has a negative jump bonus, but a positive thrust bonus. And so next we'll go to, actually no, my bad. After the heads, we scroll down to the arms. So the arms, well, all of the components, but mostly the arms and then the shoulders, have weapon slots for you to put weapons in. So I am going to choose arms and shoulders that supply a certain type of weapon that I want to show off for this tutorial. So I'm going to use the Articulated Arm 2, which has 6 rocket slots. And so to equip the arm, you click the arm, you click the slot, you click either slot that you want to put the arm in. I could also put a second arm or a different arm in the other arm slot. It doesn't matter which way you have these arms in here, you just have 2 arms. It is irrelevant which arm goes where. So I'm actually going to put 2 of the same arm on this Sentinel because I want all of these rockets, as many rockets as possible. So after the arms, I scroll down to the shoulders. And let's see here. You can see on these dialog boxes what types of weapons they have. So because I want to have rockets, I'm going to choose between 3 different types of shoulders. I have the shoulder pack here, which has 4 rockets. I have the expanded shoulder pack, which has 8 rockets. And I have the heavy shoulder pack, which has 4 large rockets. Large rockets are a different weapon from normal rockets, but because I want to show off more than just one type of rocket, I'm going to choose the heavy shoulder pack. Also, take note, this little, I can't move the mouse on it, but you see this little light blue diagram, this circle with part of it filled out? That represents the arc of which you can fire the weapon at. So for the second shoulder, I want something that gives a boost to my thrust and my jump, which I'll be showing off all these stats as soon as I build my build. So I'm going to put a jump jet because it has bonuses for both thrust and jump. So now that I have the components, I will go to the weapons. These slots right here represent large rockets. So I will scroll down to the large rocket / missile section. Missiles are just rockets that have targeting capability, which I will show. And I'm going to make a build that has targeting capability. So I'm going to use air death missiles, because these missiles, as you can read in the description, or in this dialog box, it says uses targeter. And so either I can click on the missile itself, and then click on the slots to fill it in, or I can double click on the weapon I want to fill in all of the applicable slots. So all of the heavy weapon slots were filled by the air death weapon because I double clicked. Now you may not want to do that, but if you do, a quick way of doing it is to just double click on the weapon to fill in all of the applicable slots. So I want all air death. And now for all of these slots here, I have small rockets or normal size rockets. So I'll scroll back up here and see the rapier missile is the only missile, or I guess, yeah, it is the only missile because it's not a rocket, but it's the only normal missile that uses targeter. So I want to use that because having multiple weapons that are targeter compliant is going to be helpful, given that I'm going to be using targeter. So I'm going to fill in all of the weapons with rapier missile. Then I'll go to the modules. So the modules, they essentially give various bonuses or buffs, very specified bonuses or buffs to the Sentinel. These are very important in customizing what type of Sentinel you're trying to go for. As you can see, there's one module here. These are Thrust Stabilizers. These have the important function of making it so when you're flying and you get hit, you don't lose the ability to continue flying. If you didn't have this module here, if you got damaged while flying, you would not be able to fly again until after a short period of time. So if you have a flying Sentinel, which this one will be, because I want to show off how to fly, this is an essential module. So let me put on some additional modules. These generators here are modules. Actually, before I go into the modules themselves, I'm going to go over all these stats here because modules are very relevant to these stats. Thrust is the efficiency of which your Sentinel can fly. That means distance and energy efficiency all lumped into one. Ideally, for a Sentinel to be a, I guess you could say, aerodynamic flying Sentinel, you want at least 200% thrust. Different Sentinels have different base values of thrust and are influenced by components that buff thrust. For example, the jump jet here, as you can see in the dialog box, it has a jump of 65 and a thrust of 65. But over to the right, you'll see it says jump and thrust are both 84. That's because this particular Sentinel, the Aquila that I'm using, gets much more out of components that give thrust bonuses or jump bonuses because it is a lighter Sentinel. Usually the mass of the Sentinel, which I'll go into as well, correlates to like the quote-unquote weight of the Sentinel. So for example, if I put this jump jet on a heavier Sentinel, it would not get 84 thrust or jump. It might get like 24. It just depends on the Sentinel. But because this is a very small and a very lightweight Sentinel, relatively speaking, it is very easy to increase the thrust and jump of the Sentinel with these components. Now conversely, heavier components weigh down such a chassis as this more than it might weigh down another type of chassis. But that's for you to explore. Jump is just how far you can jump, essentially. If you have a jumping build, you probably also want jump between 200 and 300%. The maximum you can go for thrust is 300%. I think that is also the same case for jump, but I am not entirely sure. It might be 200%, but either way, this Sentinel is more meant to be a flyer and a jumper, and also a ground Sentinel. I'm just trying to make a Sentinel that can do all sorts of movements. Usually, your Sentinel would specialize in one or two things. but because this Sentinel is lightweight, it can do multiple things, which is great for this tutorial. Tech value is a balancing number, so that smaller Sentinels like this one can compete with larger Sentinels. For example, the biggest, or the highest tech Sentinel, the biggest, fattest, whatever Sentinel, whatever you want to call it, is the Babel. And with a typical Babel will probably be around 20 to 30k in tech value. And it will, for the most part, absolutely destroy this Sentinel I have here. However, as a balancing factor, this Sentinel has a lower tech value. And the way tech value balances is that tech value determines how many points you receive for damaging others and destroying others. So if the big Babel Sentinel were to destroy this chassis or this Sentinel, he would get many fewer points than if I were to destroy him, because our tech values would be so large in gap that I would get a significantly a greater number of points for killing him than he does for killing me. So yes, this is something you want to keep in mind. Now you can just wholly disregard this tech value and bring a Sentinel that's super high tech value and super high damage, but it might be frustrating that you would not be doing well in the game because you wouldn't get any points for your kills and people would just farm you for points. But anyway, moving on. Energy generation. Energy is used for a variety of things, mostly though for energy-based weapons and thrusting. So there are modules that you can do to restore your energy, or to add to the energy regeneration. Because whenever, as you will see in the test field, your Sentinel has a certain amount of energy that you can increase if you want with modules, but the generation of that energy, depending on how you want to structure your build, can be very important to your build's functionality. Energy capacity is just how much energy your Sentinel has by default, how much it starts out with, its default maximum. Resistance it refers to modules. There are certain modules that offer resistance to certain types of things. For example, EMP. EMP is a weapon that negatively impacts your energy level and energy state. I won't really get into that because as you play the game, it's fairly intuitive the way it works. Kinetic and explosive, there are armors you can use. Well, for all of these, there are armors you can use. Armor modules that you can use to gain resistance to these. But many weapons are kinetic, and the other half of weapons are explosive. Or they're energy, but we'll get into the energy armor, you could call it, which is this one, shields. Shields generally block against energy weapons. That's not entirely true, but of course as you play the game you'll realize which weapons, which types of armor block. Oh yeah, shields are also a module. Integrity just means the HP of your Sentinel. So this one's 850 kPAM, which is relatively low, but that's fine because we are running a low durability build. You can increase your integrity by using components. It is a factor in the components you choose. For example, this scout head has 50 integrity or 50 health. Both of these arms have 100 health. The heavy shoulder pack has 275 health, and the jump jet has 125 health. Generally speaking, the more integrity a component has, the greater it weighs. Also, chassis come with their own default integrity, like this heart right here. The sentry is 400, the precursor is 700, and all the way down the bottom you have the Babel chassis with 2000. And by the way, I know I said this before, at least I'm pretty sure I did, but each Sentinel comes with a default number of these module slots, as indicated by these icons down here. The Aquila, the one we're using, comes with 2 by default. The heads, all except for one which has 4, but all the heads come with 3 module slots. But as a trade-off, some of these heads come with what are called integrated modules, which are indicated by this fancy background behind this module. So for example, the Scout Head, it has these two icons here, so it has 2 free module slots. But default, or integrated with the head, are the Thrust Stabilizers, so I can't remove this. As long as I have this Scout Head on, I am forced to use this. If I don't want to use this, I would have to change my head. But anyway, lastly we have mass, which mass is kind of like weight, but it's not it should approximate weight, but it's not 1-to-1. It's not factored into like the weight algorithm, so to speak. Usually mass just means if you have a low mass, you will get knocked around, or you'll have high knockback when you're hit with a large weapon. But if you have high mass, then you won't. Did I say that right? With low mass, you'll get knocked back farther. But with high mass, you won't get knocked back nearly as far, if at all. So it's not super relevant, but it's there. And so now we're going to build this chassis in terms of modules. So these generators are what will increase the energy generation of the Sentinel. I am going to bring... Of course, the higher generator offers the better generation, but they also come with the caveat of being a higher tech value. And I generally like to keep my tech value kind of low. So, let's see. I will bring the hydrogen generator. As you can see, this energy generation spiked up quite a bit. And the reason I'm bringing this generator is because this Sentinel is flying. And with such high thrust efficiency, 297, almost 300, that means that I can probably fly around for a very long time without having to land to recharge my energy, as I will show in the test field video. Energy storage, this is just my maximum amount of energy. What I could probably get away with is, instead of adding just a higher capacity of energy, I could probably just add another generator just to keep my energy replenishing at such a fast rate. Maybe it's a trade-off, because not only do I need energy to fly, but I'll also need energy to use the targeter. But we will see that going in. Maybe actually, just to make the build more balanced, I will put a large capacitor in. And then shields. Do I want to bring shields? Maybe. There is no objectively best Sentinel. Whenever you build a Sentinel, it's like it's just a bunch of trade-offs, you know? Like, there are some Sentinels that could hard counter this Sentinel, but it just depends, like, what you're afraid of, what you want to be resistant to, what you don't want to deal with as much. Shields, I think I'll skip on the actually, I will put in... I think I'll skip on the shields. The platings. I will put EMP plating on this Sentinel. Let's see, 63% to EMP, which means if I'm going to get hit by an EMP weapon, I will resist 63% of the adverse EMP effects on the Sentinel. And then lastly, of course you can go through all of these modules and read their descriptions and see if they suit you. I'll probably go back and go over like them. I'll go over all this stuff more in depth. But first, I just want to show how the Sentinel works. And so lastly, I'll put Targeter on my Sentinel so I can use my Targeter compatible weapons. And so now that I've built the Sentinel, I will choose a map. You don't have to choose a map, you can just go to the test field automatically, but I will go to the defaults right here. You can select all these planets here. Most of them have planets on them. All of these maps are available to play in multiplayer. All the ones on the left side at least. And so now that we're here, I will choose, I'll go back to configuration, and I'll go to test field. So now we have my Sentinel here. So to move in this game on the ground, you use WA, S, and D. A will make you move left, D will make you move right, there is no, like, significance in turning. You can fire either which way by left-clicking. You can be running one way and then fire the other way, but it will turn you around briefly to fire the other way. Or you can fire forward. Oh yeah, forward and just keep your momentum going. This is a faster sentinel on the ground. Most sentinels are not this fast on the ground. And then you can press S to stop. Now to jump and to fly. To jump, you will hold W, and then you move your mouse where you want your jump trajectory to be, which is indicated by these blue dots. So I'll jump where those blue dots are. Now I'll jump on top of the hill. If you want to reduce your jump distance, you can bring your mouse closer to your sentinel. Farther away is the maximum. Closer you can adjust the distance. And now to fly, most sentinels you'll first jump. Maybe you could go straight to flying, but you need to be in the air. Well, you don't need to be, but if your sentinel can jump, you need to be in the air. And then you press W again. In the same way that you jump, you also fly, which is by moving the mouse around and then pressing W and letting go. You can customize all of these controls if you'd like. I'll show you where to do that. But these are the default controls as far as I am aware. So yes, and as you'll see down here, every thrust I take, I am losing energy. The green is the HP, the orange/yellow is the energy. And so if I need to replenish my energy, I need to land, well, I can replenish it while in the air, but it takes a significantly longer period of time to replenish in the air than it does on the ground. Of course, the more you thrust and the faster you thrust, the more energy you'll consume. So you want to be mindful of that. Now, in order to use the targeted weaponry, the purpose of which I'm showing the targeted weaponry is because Targeter is a lot easier to aim with because the game literally aims for you. You just have to position yourself. So I will bring in a sentry. Actually, I will bring in a Babel, so it's an easier target. In the test field, you have all these stats and stuff. In the real game, you won't. But either way. So with the weapons, if I'm not targeting, if I were to use a standard weapon, I could just use this line I have here and aim it at them and left click, it will shoot them. Now with Targeter, what I can do is if I hold down the left alt key, which can be binded, and left click on the sentinel, it'll lock onto the sentinel with a 3-second countdown before you get the lock. Now wherever I move this weapon, you see the white line is aimed at the sentinel I'm targeting. And so wherever I fire, the rockets are going to go at the sentinel because I'm targeting them. If I wanted to detarget, I could hold down left alt and right click, I think? Nah, I'm wrong. I think I'd have to hold down and right click on the sentinel. I'm not sure. I don't use Targeter that often. I can also target while I'm in the air. Wait until it locks. Fly around. Oh, that's all. Oh, I have... Yeah, my weapons come back. That's good. That's good. Rockets take time to replenish. The heavy rockets take longer, while the smaller rockets take a lot quicker. And then he blows up because he has a certain module that makes him blow up for a finite number of times. But anyway, that is the gist of how to play this game. Now normally, what's going to occur is the most popular game mode is known as Capture the Flag. So let's see if I can start a game by myself. You don't have to follow this, I'm just setting it up for myself. Well, let me start? No, it won't let me start. Alright, well then never mind. But essentially in Capture the Flag, I can actually show the map. I can't put the ships on it, but that's fine. Procedural. Procedural just means the map is procedurally generated. All this stuff. In Capture the Flag, what you do, there are either two roles. You can either be a defender role, or you can be an attacker role, which means you would fly to one side of the map, the opposite side of the map from which you spawn, and then bring back the flag back to your side. And then usually, once you've done it 3 times, your team wins the game. That's not always the case, but generally speaking, that is the case. So for example, if I were to, let's just make some random sentinels everywhere. Let's say I wanted to kill this enemy right here. I would target them, and then they die. And then this one right here, he's a threat. I don't want him going to my side, so I'll kill him. And then he's dead. And then these 2 right here are also threats, so I might want to duck behind the rock so they can't hit me, and then attack them from here with my weapons. And then I might try to go under the rocks, get onto their side of the map, claim their flag here just by entering their zone, and then flying back to my side of the map. Now, as you'll see, my energy is low, so I might have to stop on a rock or some other structure in order to replenish my energy. As you'll notice, if I target a weapon, or I mean a sentinel, you'll see it takes a whole bar away of energy away from me. If I were to rapidly target like this, you see my energy goes away. Now, if all your energy does go away, you enter into energy loss state, which means you can't move and you can't use any energy weapons. You can still fire non-energy weapons, like these missiles, but you won't get the target lock on them because you have no energy. So it'll just go away. I think that's the gist of how to play the game. Now, if you wanted to save your bot, you would click this plus icon here, and you'd enter a name. I'm just going to call this tutorial bot. And you can even have people give you bots that appear in this custom build list, which you click on this icon right here beneath the plus in order to access. If you wanted to import custom builds, you would click this icon right here. It would open the directory to where you put the Sentinel configuration files into. Now, it is worth noting that this button here has default builds, but these default builds are typically not great. Some of them are useful. I don't use them though. You can use them if you want to though. In fact, I would probably encourage you to use some of these builds just so you know what's actually happening. I'll use the Sentry build, my favorite build in the game. Oh, and I'll go to the test field. So this Sentinel has a lot of weapons, probably too many, probably more than you as a new player want to use at once. Most people probably don't want to use these many weapons, but I have a flak gun, which I'll explain what it does later. I have, what's this? Piercer rockets, which I have to aim. I have EMP rockets. And by the way, in case you didn't notice this blue arc looking thing, this is the arc in which I can fire this weapon. It is a 180 degree arc, or up to 180 degrees. So, given that this blue arc is on the left side, it means if I wanted to face the other way, the arc is also still there. There's no, it's just 180, it's not 360 in the way arcs work. If you can fire in front of you, you can fire behind you in the same manner. So yeah, I can move. Let's see, what's this weapon? Oh, this is, I think this is a heavy cannon. There's like a fire delay that you have to account for. There's also a delay in the game you have to account for. But you'll get used to that as you play. And as you can see, this is a non-energy dependent weapon. I'm not using any energy firing this weapon. And then you have airburst rockets, which are rockets that make flak clouds, as you can see in the minimap and even in the game itself. And then you have this, the nuke, which, my favorite weapon. It's a massively powerful super rocket that's only equipable on the Sentry and or on certain components. Let me see if I can get a good babble to nuke. Alright, I'll nuke this babble here. This is kind of hard because the line is not infinitely long. Let's see if I can get this here. Please land and don't miss. Ah, it missed. Oh well. Whatever. Let me go to a different map that's easier to aim. Go back to default. I will make a babble. So yeah, to use my weapons on him, I could shoot these weapons at him. Those damage his shields as well as sap his energy. Explosive cannons. Use airburst rockets, which are mostly kind of useless. And then I can finally nuke him. And then he should die. Boom. You can experiment with all of these sentinels. I will be putting in the description the download to the sentinel I built before. The, what's it called? The test. The tutorial bot. The way I typically name my sentinels is I put like the chassis type followed by the tech followed by what they specialize in doing, just so they're alphabetized in an order. But you can create folders in the directory here, but whatever. That's beyond the scope of this tutorial. To briefly go through the chassis real quick, their strengths and weaknesses. The Sentry is kind of a low tech, more so kind of balanced build. It can fly, it can not really jump, but it has a decent speed on the ground. It can fulfill a lot of things as being a low tech, low end build. It also has the nuke as a weapon slot. The Precursor is kind of like the low end tank. It can jump really far, and it has quite the capability in terms of, you know, firepower and components. It is the lowest end chassis that can equip big arms, which are larger arms that only certain sentinels can equip. I will mention which sentinels can equip them when they come along, but mostly the ones near the end of this list can equip them. Aquila is like the very fast, lightweight type of chassis. Turtle is a slow but armored and quite a deadly chassis. It's a unique one in that it doesn't have any arm slots, it just has a head and 2 shoulder slots. A Commando is it's probably the most all-around, well-balanced in terms of maneuverability and firepower. It has a good number of module slots, it has good thrust, good jump. It's just the all-around most average, but it's good at being average. Hurricane. This is a very unique chassis in that the Hurricane can take a lot of weight, but still be able to fly and jump pretty decently. Like it says here, it is a steady flying fortress. So I could put on all the heavy artillery or heavy weaponry, and it would still be able to fly. It's essentially an aerial Bertha, and I'll get to what a Bertha is down the list. But also conversely, you can't really make it perform better in the air. It doesn't get weighed down, but it also doesn't improve very much in terms of efficiency. The Scorpion is another unique chassis like the Turtle, where it has 2 shoulders but no arms. It is a fast sentinel on the ground, like the Aquila. It can fly, it can jump a bit. It's pretty much a faster weapon platform than the Turtle, but like it's a little, yeah. It's like all these chassis have strengths and weaknesses. It's like a high-tech, fast weapons platform with air capability. The Crusher is, you could sort of think of it as the Commando's bigger brother. It's a little heavier, but it's also very all-around average. It can also equip big arms down here. If you were to choose a sentinel that could not equip big arms, then it would say like, oh, there's no slot to equip it. The Bertha is by far the heaviest damage dealer in the game. The Valhalla is it's like the bigger brother of the Crusher, you could think of it as, except more tanky. And the Babel, the biggest chassis of them all, the highest end of the chassis, is you could say it's kind of I don't want to say it's the even bigger brother of the Valhalla, but it's unique in that it has no shoulder slots but only arm slots. It does have a good amount of default slots in order to account for the lack of shoulder slots, but this is like the walking tank. It can't fly at all. Neither can the Bertha. The Bertha can't fly or jump, but the Babel can jump. It's a Babel. It's the Babel. The name speaks for itself. It's like the Titan of chassis, but it should be buffed. As far as individual components go, I won't go through all of them, but I will say you will really want to put your mouse over which type of heads or of all the components that you want to know about. You can even ask people, like, what kind of head do you want to use if you want to make this type of build? Because I've yet to encounter a build that could not use one of these heads in some, or has some special need for these heads. Some kind of, well, I guess a better way of saying it would be, all of these heads fill a specific role, and except for the Oracle head here, which is just 3 free module slots, but ideally you want to use heads that have integrated modules that you need, because integrated modules come at half the cost in tech value. As you'll notice, when you add a module to the Sentinel, it goes from a tech value, or a lower tech value, to a higher tech value. In this case, from 3,500 to 8,000. So yeah, I would recommend just mousing through these heads. Some notable heads are the Scout head, because it gives really good thrust bonuses. And the Predator head, which gives a Sun capacitor, which increases your energy capacity by a lot, while also being a very HP or integrity heavy head. And then so on and so forth all the way down. As for arms, notable ones include the melee arms, which they have a melee attack component to them, which I'll show off a little bit later. And among the shoulders, notable ones, let me choose a chassis that can apply a shoulder, would be the atmospheric wing, which gives a lot of thrust bonus for flying, and ordnance mountings, which gives an ordnance slot, which is the highest. Ordnance is the highest non-rocket weapon slot in terms of damage output. Let's see. I need to choose a weapon with slots. I'm going to choose, just as an example, my preferred Sentinel of choice. So as for all these components, I have a Scout head for thrust. Oh, this is the wrong weapon. I mean, this is the wrong Sentinel. My bad. It is this one. Scout head for the flight, Stormhammer arm for the melee attack, Stormhammer arm 2 as a complement. It also has the same arc as the Stormhammer arm, and it's a fairly lightweight arm, so it's really compatible with what I'm going for. A jump jet to provide, well, I have a wing to help me fly more, and a jump jet to also help me fly more, but there are also other reasons why I have the jump jet instead of another wing. As you can see, I'm capped out at 300%, so I don't need another wing. The jump jet affords some benefits the wing doesn't, but I'm sure as you play, you will learn the components a lot more thoroughly and make judgments for yourself. As for weapons, I have the turbo nuke. I have a light/rocket/heavy rocket slot, which comes from one of my components, and so I can put these weapons on the slot. I'm not going to go over all the weapons, but I'll go over the general ones. There's the light category, the heavy category, the ordnance category, the small rocket missile category, and the large rocket missile category, along with the nuke category. And then you'll just have to experiment with these weapons yourself. Go into test field, try all of them out. Usually between, these weapons will there are usually light, heavy, and ordnance variants of most weapons. So for example, if I were to, let's say, just take an ordnance slot here, and I were to have a minigun coupled with 2 heavy guns, and on top of them also put an ultra gun on this Sentinel, and go to the test field. all of these weapons would be considered the same weapon as close assault range weapons. And this arc thing here, you can see this is where you can. This is for I can't shoot higher than this, for example. So on and so forth. However, if I were to have different types of weapons for all these slots, let's put a rail cannon on that. I would have the bombs right here, which spread out and cause a lot of damage if you have enough of them. As one weapon, I would have close assault range weapons as another, or close assault range guns, and then rail, or yeah, this is known as rail weapons as the third thing. Notice also, certain weapons take energy. See, as I fire this rail right here, I am losing energy. If I fire it enough times, I will go into energy loss state. Also, by the way, if you use, actually, I'll cover that later, never mind. So yeah, I'm in energy loss because I used all my energy. Typically, you want to stack your weapon, just because it's better DPS. Let's see, yeah. You'll just have to experiment with all these weapons here in the test field, see which ones you like. Watch other players use them, ask them which weapons they're using, ask them which builds they're using, so on and so forth. As for modules, I already covered most of them. Power generation is how efficiently you regenerate your energy, for the most part. Energy storage is energy capacity, how much you have by default. Energy shielding, various types of shields that block against certain types of attacks. Armor, these offer resistance, usually, most except for this one, this charge plane, but it's kind of useless, so don't worry about it. These three armors right here offer resistance to certain things. Targeting as a category relates to weapons that help you aim in certain capacities. Targeter is, as I showed you, pin, or projectile interception node, is an automated system that allows you to it makes the game automatically intercept missiles or rockets for you if you have a weapon that's compatible with that. Missile Scrambler makes it so the target lock on your... Missile Scrambler is sort of a counter to Targeter. It makes it so the targeted duration is much less than 20 seconds. Scanner is very important if you're not using a targeting build. As you can see, this scanner here that I have on this build, it is very important. Let's see if I can show why. Let's add a flyer. Does it have scan dots? No, it does not. Never mind. Now he's hitting me. Kill all. Okay. As you can see, these dots here as I move. What Scanner allows you to do is it allows you to see the movement projection dots of an enemy sentinel, which is extremely important if you're not using targeted weapons, because that will allow you to react in time in order to properly aim your weapon at the enemy. Also, what Scanner does is it dramatically increases the line of sight range of your weapon. You see this huge white line here that's telling me where my rail will end up if I fire it at whatever angle I'm firing it from. That is very, very important. Well, it's very helpful. The movement projection dots are a lot more important. But if I were to remove Scanner, this line would be a lot shorter, as you see. Let's see, other important modules. Spectral cloaking device, this is just a cloaking device. It lets you be invisible. I will turn invisible shortly. Of course, if I were to thrust or whatever, you could see my thrust or whatnot, but the enemy can't see my movement dots, which is what is most important about cloaking. Until you get hit. If you take damage, then you will reveal yourself and your movement dots will be exposed to the enemy if they have Scanner, which if they don't have Targeter, they will most likely have Scanner. You can think of Scanner and Targeter as the arcane gate of this game if you are an Arcanist's player. That's a really good analogy. Rapid Loader lets you recharge your rocket's missiles twice as fast, but reduces the rate of which you can fire them at one time. Plasma Coolant system, you'll probably want this if you're using plasma weapons. It reduces the energy cost of plasma weapons by 30%. Photonic Overdriver, you can actually read all these by yourself, but I'll just go over the important ones. Ordnance Stabilizers is a module you need if you want to fire ordnance weapons while being airborne. This is very important to hurricanes that use ordnance weapons. Teleportation, this is fun to use. Make sure you have enough energy to use it. Gravity pods. help you jump and reduces knockback. Thrust stabilizers, as I detailed before, are like, to use an Arcanist reference again, thrust stabilizers are to flying sentinels that specialize in flying, as Arcane Gate is to any spellbook in Arcanists. This is very important for flyers. EMP Blast is a EMP Blast Net Repair Kit. They're more specialized stuff. So yeah, you can read these all on your own. Lastly, I will go over the... Actually, before last, if you wanted to steal someone else's build, you could go to Game Results, and as it loads, it'll have all the saved game results in your history, and you can actually see which builds people are using. You can reference them to build your own. There's no ability to copy them right now, but it would be great if that became a thing. So yeah, like I can see everything. Like here's my build right here. I had all these components, all the orange text. I had the Sentinel in the yellow text. I had the weapons in the purple, or the pink/purple text. And I had the modules in the green text. And then in the white text in the top right corner, that was my tech level for this build. So anyway, just lastly, to go into options, you can bind all of your keys here, walk left, walk right, stop, jump, fire, and so on and so on and so on. You can even bind your weapon hotkeys. For example, I have bound to the F key the Stormhammer attack, and then you can assign the hotkey behavior, whether it's to switch to the weapon only, or to fire the weapon only, or to fire and switch, or to switch, switch, but fire if already selected. So for the melee attacks, this is more advanced, but I like to use fire weapon only as Stormhammer. So whenever I want to use my Stormhammer, let's see. Let's say I'm on this weapon, the sniper cannon. I could just press F, and then I do the melee attack. So for example, I will make an Aquila, because Aquilas are nice and easy to kill. So like I can shoot it and whatever, and then when I'm next to it, I can press F and then kill it with the melee attack. And then finally, once you are ready to play the game, you go to multiplayer, and then usually during the events, which are Thursday and Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, there will be games in here, or a game in here for you to join. And then you can also, before the game, you can select from your saved sentinels whichever sentinel you want to use, or you can go back and reconfigure your sentinel and then save it again. Like if I wanted to like put a minigun on here for whatever reason, I could go here and then click the plus and then save it again as whatever name I wanted to. So that should be a pretty comprehensive tutorial guide on how to get started with CC. I know it's quite long, but this game does have a learning curve, and without a proper tutorial in the game at the moment, this is probably the best that is afforded to learning this game, aside from playing Steel Sentinels, which will probably take even more time than watching this video. So I hope you enjoyed, I hope this was helpful, and I hope to see you at the Chrome Conflict events. Check the description below for all relevant links and other such things I want to share with you that I feel are important. Have a great rest of your day.